On this episode of the Iron and Infrastructure podcast, have guest Nate Saxton, a good friend of mine. We talk about connecting the R&R pipeline years ago, reconnecting years after, and how business and fitness collaboration together can accelerate your life, and the power of commitment. On today's episode, we have a good friend, guest, Nate Saxton. So me and Nate have some history. But before we go into the history, let's talk a little bit about your background. So tell me about where you went to school, sports, hobbies, and all that growing up.
Yeah, so I grew up in New Lexington, a small town, southern Ohio. Not many people have heard of it. Growing up, I played, football, basketball, and then majority it was motocross. So I did a lot of racing.
What age did you start racing?
I think I was 12.
12, because that's about when I started too.
Yeah,
12, 13, yeah.
I was only allowed to ride, and my parents always told me when you turn 12, you can start racing. So my 12th birthday, I'm like, where are we going?
Did you start on like an 80, 85?
It was an XR 100 actually.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And I started out in woods and then transitioned into motocross eventually. So.
The motocross is a dead-end, injury-ridden sport unless you make a career out of it, which very, very few people do.
Yep.
So talk about any other sports did you play in high school going up?
Yeah, so basketball was my biggest sport. I played football all the way up until my sophomore year. Then I couldn't anymore from injuries. I played basketball until my senior year, but really, as far as sports go, motocross was the thing that I was dedicated to. It was that adrenaline rush, the challenge, the drive for more, bigger races, faster bikes, more competition.
So do you still ride now? You been done with it?
I played with it back and forth, buying a bike, realizing that it beats my ass.
Yeah. When did you quit racing?
It was so my 18th birthday. My parents, it's a very money-driven sport. If you're not blessed, then it's hard to keep feeding into it. My 18th birthday, my parents told me, it's up to you now. You work for the racing. If you want to support yourself, you can. We'll support you, but the check's on you. And from there, I went out.
It's a lot different when you write it yourself.
It's way different when you write it yourself. Especially fresh out of high school, spending money in stupid ways and not focused on what you should be. My first job right out of high school, I went to a tree climbing service, and we would trim trees off the power line. So it was hard work, grueling all through the wintertime too. It would be, I think it was 12 degrees one day. We were out there chipping ice off the trees. That way we could climb up them.
Yeah. Did you go to college at all?
No college.
What was the determining factor for that?
I mean, school never really was my thing. I never paid attention enough in class. It was never an interest. I knew that, you could figure it out without having to go to school. And if you weren't going to school for a certain reason, then it didn't make sense to float the bill for that. So.
Yeah, that was my outlook on it was I can go make 20 grand a year. I can spend 20 grand a year. And I'm going to party either way. So I might as well go make the money.
Might as well
buy a house and have that debt instead of college debt. But it's not a one size fits all. I think it's just a preference point. But for me, I definitely don't regret not going. But now later on in life, it definitely comes back to there's simple things that I don't have, like organization and good grammar, the basics that you would learn from applying yourself in school. So started out with the tree trimming and then talk about your career path after that. So
right after the trees, I found you at R&R Pipeline.
You found our pipeline, you didn't find me.
Yeah. Well, you were a employee there at the time.
Yeah, I think so.
Project manager.
Yeah. So that would have been what year? I think.
I know I was 20. So what year would that have been?
2016, 15?
Yeah.
No. Where did you graduate high school?
14.
So yeah.
About 8 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that was right before I went in as operations manager then, because I think I went in 2016. So been right in that time frame. So talk about your beginning at R&R Pipeline and then our first run-ins with each other and whatnot. Any highlights or anything in particular that stick out? I know there's a couple that I can think of, but anything in particular that sticks out to you from that beginning?
Yeah, so with R&R Pipeline, I started out as a flagger. That was the
so
worst.
did I.
Did you really?
Yeah. For $9 an hour in 2007.
Yeah, that was the worst position I think I've ever had. I mean, it was boring. I moved up. Yeah, I was a ditch guy, shoveling the ditches out, making sure it was at the right depth. And then from there, I went to a pipeline fuser. The biggest highlight, I think, was my 21st birthday. I had told the bosses the night before, like, hey, it's my 21st birthday. I'm going out. We're going to have a little fun. And they were like, don't show up late. Or Cody did that, smack you on the stomach however many times, 21. But, man, did I show up late. I think it was 11:54. And you texted me. You were like, if you're
I think I was on site that day.
You were on site, unfortunately. You said, if you show up past 12, I'm firing your ass. Yeah. It was like 5 minutes down the road.
Yeah, I remember. I forgot all about that until we reconnected. And when you were telling me about that, I said, well, that's fitting. That sounds about right. But I had totally forgot about it until then. I think we were in Nelsonville area.
We were actually right here in Newark.
When that happened?
Right in front of the hospital, because you put me on the saw for the rest of the day. That long straight stretch. I think it was like
the most miserable job possible.
Oh man, yeah, and it's definitely not fun hungover.
Yeah, that's definitely something I would do, because that's how I was brought up.
You didn't say a word. You just said get on the saw.
Yeah, good torture yourself, get all that booze out of your system.
Definitely sweated the booze out. That's for sure.
So, what did you think about the culture of R&R Pipeline at that time, from a safety operational standpoint, and what was your overall consensus of the company, I guess, when you left that original time? Yeah,
I think that was the first actual company that I felt a part of. You definitely have a team atmosphere there. Everybody's for everybody. If I ever had a problem, I'd always come to you and talk to you straight up about it, which most places you can't handle problems like that. So that was a great part of it, and I think that's one of the ways we ended up connecting, and then later down the road reconnecting as well. It was a great experience.
What did you think from a safety standpoint? Because you were right when I came out of the field, went into the operations seat. Cody was coming in. Like, you're right in that beginning stage of the transition. And it's funny that that's your actual memory of the company, because my personal memory from that point was how incompetent we were.
Really?
Oh, my God, yeah. So from what we are today to what we were then, like now we have a nationwide known safety rating. We have, accolades to show how our safety performance is what we say it is.
Yeah.
Then, we didn't even have a safety culture at all outside of don't get caught by OSHA, don't get in trouble, make sure you can pass this audit, but then get the pipe in the ground as fast as you can. We had a very old school cowboy-ish, culture at that point. And then, when Cody came back and I went into the operations, that's when Cody overhauled it. He had that military background, and I know one day he showed up and fired a whole entire crew for not having safety glasses on. This was the expectation. You're going to meet it or you're going to go. And I think he probably fired 30 or 40 people in one calendar year. And it was what was necessary, but it was difficult to replace people and to, get everyone to buy into that culture. And then as time, evolved and the culture evolved, people started buying in. From a leadership standpoint, I'm curious on what you've seen before. Like, I went into the management side. And then do you even remember now what it was like when I was in the field, project manager wise to operation manager, and any differences that you've seen? When we really had full grasp of the company is, when I was in the ops seat and Cody had the full safety.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that about safety, I do remember a couple times when we first started out. One of the days I was getting lowered down into a deep hole.
Yeah, that doesn't see that's
by
more,
a bucket,
yeah.
And I mean, it was well over 10 feet. We were going under a road, so it had to have been 10 feet deep. And all I remember is I'm the newest guy on the crew. I'm getting in the hole.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to, but
And so the culture of the lack of safety culture
Yeah.
was driven by leadership, which was the worst. It was, and I did it too to some degree. And then I thought, man, this just don't make any damn sense.
Right.
But like that 10-foot hole, normally it would be the most senior guy on the crew that would do it. So if anybody got in trouble, it would be him.
Yeah.
And a lot of time that's what would end up happening. And then, you know, you would see that guy do it, so it became acceptable. And that's what spiraled, not out of control, but it spiraled to, you know, having a culture where it's the lack of safety.
Yeah.
And then as awareness was created and different programs came out, requirements came out, it was almost like we just didn't know or we didn't want to acknowledge it. But then awareness happened, and then you couldn't like not acknowledge it. It was almost neglect to have people do what they had always done. So that was really the transformation, you know, from a management standpoint, is we know this is wrong now.
Yeah.
Where before, is it wrong? Is it right? We don't really know. But, you know, it's interesting to think back to that point. It wasn't very long ago, but man, it feels like ages ago now.
Yeah.
So then after R&R Pipeline, I don't remember why you left. I know maybe going into winter, was it a layoff season?
It wasn't a layoff season. I was just, I tried out a different company just for, to be union.
Right.
That's all it was everybody talked about how good union was versus, you know.
So what was your experience there?
No different. Honestly, I wish I would have been back at R&R Pipeline the whole time. It's more corporate, more, you know.
The union side?
Rules, policies, clock in type deal. Whereas here at R&R, you know, it was always closer work. I got along with everybody. So when I went over to RLA, there wasn't anything that, like, you know, man, I love this place, I want to stay here. It was nothing like that. The culture wasn't any better. The team wasn't any better, if not worse, you know what I mean?
So how long were you there, and then what did you do after that?
I was there for a year and a half just because they were putting me on a transmission crew. So I was just big pipe welding all day long.
Were you traveling a bunch, or was it?
No, it was all still here in Ohio.
Okay.
I was traveling farther, but it was all still here. I thought that was going to be, you know, a great opportunity, and it just ended up, we ran a transmission line for about 6 months, and then that job ended and there was no more. So I'm like,
it's
grass
amazing.
Isn't always greener.
No, it's not. And we've had a lot of people leave thinking that this massive opportunity is right there going into the union, the big pipeline. I've seen this play out multiple times, and it's short-lived. Yeah, the money's great for the time that it lasts, but then 3 months later, people were coming back or don't know, you know, from a culture standpoint, they go thinking that this is going to be this great opportunity, but then they're working 7/12s or whatever it is to get the job done, then they don't have any work.
Then you don't have any work.
Yeah, and then, you know, from a culture standpoint too, a lot of what we have seen is people just get ran into the ground, and it is complete cutthroat. There's a place and time to have expectations and lead with authority, but completely overhauling or overmanaging, micromanaging a crew is detrimental to production, in my opinion. It's tried and true so far. I've seen it, but giving people flexibility, a little bit of freedom to operate and within their skill set and to make their own decisions does help a bunch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't give them the opportunities to grow as a person, a foreman, anything like that, they're never going to better themselves to be able to handle that capacity that you're wanting them to handle. So
after RLA, what did you go into after that?
Heavy equipment operating for Marzane Asphalt.
So you were there for a few years, because that's when we kind of reconnected, right?
Yep, I was there for 3 years, and then we started connecting right when I was getting out of there.
Yeah, I think you were getting, was it shutting down for the year?
So the plants were.
Yeah.
After the asphalt plants were shut down for, you know, the summer, we would all go into the shop and build new pieces for, you know, upgrading the plants next year, or parts that have went bad and we can't fix while it's running. Right. So we'd always go in the shop and we'd basically build our own plants. So there was a couple.
Tear everything down, clean it, rebuild what needed rebuilt, kind of deal.
Yeah, from the ground up. And
all the hoppers, everything.
Yeah. Belts, bearings, industrial sized bearings. We had cranes lifting them up, you know, 150 feet. We would be in it sometimes while it's running, working on it.
What was the safety culture like there?
Horrible.
I figured as much.
There were so many times on that job where I'm like, well, I'm either going to kill my foreman because he's put me in this shit, or I'm just not coming back.
Yeah. So the lack of safety in a lot of even big, well-known companies is still mind-boggling to me.
Oh.
The incentive to take shortcuts, I can't imagine it's there. I know the risk versus reward, from what we see isn't there. But from, a moral standpoint, like putting people in that position, it comes from the top down. If someone on our pipeline does something wrong, it's on me at the end of the day, regardless of what it is. They either were not properly trained, they didn't have the tools to do their job correctly, or they should have been fired before they got to that point where they could, make that decision. But the culture of safety has to be from top down. It has to be lived, tried and true, and it's not something you can fake. You either have it or you don't. And everyone has a safety culture, but very few companies actually live it. And it's like a non-negotiable for us. Yeah. If you take a shortcut to get production, you're going to get fired if it's against the rules. Like if it's black and white, you did something wrong, you're going to get fired. It doesn't matter what your intent was. Sometimes having good intent, the intent doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, especially when you're dealing with natural gas. I mean, it might not just be directly for the individual doing the work, but if they're taking shortcuts on the fusion, on the cool times, all that important stuff, it could be detrimental to somebody living in the house.
So financially, you can have one mistake cost multiple millions of dollars on a bigger picture, but then, you're working inside of the public sector, in residential areas most of the time is where we work at, and the community that we work at, we pretty much represent this big brand in this community. So, we try to sponsor communities and do different engagements within the community when we're there. A lot of the area that we're working in, we've been there for 15 or 20 years, so they know us. They know who we are. There's been multiple times where it's not good. We get bad press for something that happened, whether it was our fault or not. Our name's on the side of the truck, and that's what it is. But we feel obligated as a company to make sure that community, we come in and it's, we come in, do what we have to do safely and leave, and it's better condition when we leave. And we make sure that we do everything we can to mitigate any risk during, the construction season. So, but construction fatigue is real, and people, get angry, get pissed, and we get calls all the time. It's part of the industry, but as long as we do what we know we need to do, then, focus on what we can control, basically.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's easy to get complacent when you're in a town or a city like that, and you're doing not the same thing over and over again, but essentially the same thing over again, right? You lay the main line, you go to the houses, you lay the main line. It's easy to get complacent and try to find shortcuts to help yourself out, but having that safety standard is definitely crucial.
Yeah, it is. And in every company, construction-based company in the infrastructure sector, it is absolutely crucial that safety culture is there. 100%. And the ones that don't have it will eventually get exposed. Oh yeah. There's, especially in today's age with instant gratification and technology, everybody has their cell phone out. There's a camera at every street corner. So the ones that are not adjusting to the times are going to get left behind it. Yeah. And it's going to be detrimental to a lot of companies. I see it all the time. We have companies, even around here, that same thing. They're not willing to put the time and effort into being ahead of it. Drug testing being one of them. What we do, if you have someone that cannot pass a drug test on site, and then there's an accident that happens, what does that say about your company? And
you allow it.
what you tolerate, you allow, right? Exactly. You accept. And seeing what we've seen in the short amount of time that we've been, in this space is mind-boggling to me. So, so you went to Marzane for a few years, and then we reconnected probably 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
So tell me what your first thoughts are on that time frame when we kind of reconnected.
Well, I was definitely excited because I've always looked up to you, from the beginning since I've met you. I've always known that you were a driven, hardest working dude I know. So, I mean, I was happy. We had talked about maybe possibly coming back to R&R Pipeline. But you definitely started pressing on me the, work on yourself, personal development, mindset, all that.
The personal development, it's a non-negotiable.
Have to, yeah.
So it's funny because I really got hold of you for recruiting.
Yeah.
So randomly seen your name, it was brought up, and we were like really trying to hire because we were trying to really aggressively grow. And I was trying to think of people that I knew would be able to maximize freedom or the flexibility that would maximize that time. And I knew that it wasn't going to be the dude in the industry that had been doing this for 25 or 30 years. That it needed to be someone, young blood is what we were really looking at, that was flexible with the environment. And it obviously went multiple different areas from there. So we reconnected, and then what happened after we reconnected?
You took me to old school gym. That was a crazy experience for my first time. I actually didn't go to sleep that whole night because I'm like, man, if I don't wake up at 2:00 in the morning and go to this gym, it's a missed opportunity. I'm like, I didn't go to sleep at all. So I was up here by, I think like 3:15.
Yeah, I think you would text me when I was getting ready to hop in my truck.
Yeah, and I'm like, I can't miss this or be late.
Right.
So,
yeah.
That was an eye-opening experience, and I remember still to this day, you told me, start your own thing. Don't try to join something. Start your own thing. And me looking at it from, not really having any entrepreneurial experiences yet, I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Yeah. Start my own thing.
Yeah, and I remember you said something about being in the crew. You're like, man, what do I got to do to get in the crew? And then I remember, I distinctly remember telling you this, and I don't remember how you received it or what you thought of it, but I said, this is the harsh reality of the situation. This group has a ton of value.
Yep.
You come into that door, there is nothing that you're going to add that's going to enhance the value of it. So do something to enhance the value of yourself to bring to the crew.
Yep.
And it probably came off like a complete dick move, but really what it was awareness of the excellence that is the 4 a.m. crew.
Yeah.
And then I think I said, do something to make a splash. The I Want Abs contest, do a powerlifting meet, take chalk off the board, show up and beat someone, at that weight class. And then next thing you know, I think you sent me a picture with your contest sign up.
Yeah.
The I Want Abs contest. That was kind of the avenue that you took. And then let's talk about that. So you sign up, and your brother signed up, right?
Yeah.
So talk about that journey and the change that it kind of provided for you.
Well, I mean, I was nervous. I was trying to push it off. I'm like, nah, you know what I mean? I don't want my pictures. I was always nervous of that. And then you finally talked me into do it. I'm like, Nick, do it with me. I got a twin brother from back home. He did it with me, and we were like, we're going to give it our all no matter what. Even if we don't get in first, we're going to give it our all. That was the most dialed in and focused I've ever been. And even when it was over, I was upset. I'm like, now what? You know what I mean?
It changed you though, right?
Oh, it changed me 100%. It changed my work ethic, my drive, my mentality, everything. It was definitely one of the best experiences I've had so far as personal development and life changing, just because it put me on a different path.
So many people don't understand that Max Effort Muscle, Corey G Fitness, the collaboration of the two, it's not a diet and a training thing. It is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I Want Abs, a 12-week transformation contest, is not about transforming 12 weeks and then going back to who you were. It's 12 weeks for the rest of your life.
You'll never go back to who you were.
You never will. If you actually apply and stick with the program, you'll never go back.
No.
It feels too damn good.
Right? Yeah, 100%.
So once you get into that rhythm, it feels too good. Even with the busy diet now, I think he has it scheduled for 21 days, like a jump start.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for probably 6 weeks now, 5 or 6 weeks. I don't want to go back because it feels too good.
Right.
First of all, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. It's simple for the lifestyle.
It's for the busy people.
It is for the busy people.
Everybody, if you're
for the busy people that have a little bit of dysfunction, that want to have a bourbon on a weekend, a cigar, there's flexibility within it. That's a lifestyle fit.
Yeah.
Not just this rigid chicken, broccoli, white rice, 3, 5, 6 times a day, whatever it is. There's flexibility within it. It allows you the freedom of not tracking your food, of learning, your body more intuitively. And then the personal development is the one thing that people overlook so much. Just doing, 60 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, a cardio a day on a treadmill, just steady state, It's really the mental aspect of that.
That's the enhancement.
Never want to do it. Nobody
Right.
wants to walk on a treadmill for a half hour, but the mental discipline that comes from applying yourself on a daily basis, getting better every day. And I know for me, like I've redialed in my discipline even more like recently, where on Sundays I make it a priority to do 30 to 60 minutes, whether it's, you know, on the NordTrack bike or the treadmill, but personal development, it's got to be there.
Yeah.
Because I think the Saturday, Sunday, you know, development is kind of the separator, because so many people go 5 days a week and then don't on weekends.
And then just fall off. Yeah.
And then it's like you're almost, it's like, you know, binge eating on a weekend and then having to go back Monday resetting. Having that Friday night, Saturday, you know, flexibility as far as nutrition goes with the busy diet is good. And then Sunday you reset. Sunday's a reset day, not Monday.
Yeah.
Too much shit going on Mondays.
Way too much.
Sunday you can kind of reset and then redial it back in. Having that 12-week period, because I did the original busy diet in 2013, and that's when Corey guided me into, you know, he talked to me about doing a show, and I did 12 weeks, and the diet then was fairly miserable in comparison to what it is now. But I did it for 12 weeks. I dropped 35 or 40 pounds, and then went on stage, competed, walked off stage, gained it all back in probably a month, and then haven't been back on stage since for that. But understanding at that point for me, it was just a diet.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lifestyle. But it did transform my mental side. It took a little bit time after, but I learned a lot more mentally as far as how to develop myself from then on.
What was the difference from the busy diet back then to now?
6 meals a day, I think, every few hours, and like
it's hard to eat like
it was more like a 6-meal split throughout the day. Like it just This is very convenient for someone that is actually busy.
Yeah.
So it definitely fits better now than what it ever had before. And then for me, you know, I've had gut issues my whole life, so my stomach health, my gut digestion, like everything is much better now than what it was ever in my life. So for me, that's like a huge relief in itself.
Yeah.
So you do the I Want Abs contest. What else happened in that 12-week stint?
I started my little side business, just whimming it. I'm like, man, it was because of what you told me. You were like, don't start a brand, build one. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, if he thinks I can do it, let me give it a try. So I just started, you know, studying, researching what to do. And I started this little drop shipping brand, but I didn't know sales and marketing. So, I mean, I knew how to build it, but I didn't know how to sell it. Mm-hmm. And that was my biggest hold up with it. But everything that I learned from building that, from doing, you know, the busy diet, getting my personal development down, getting my mindset down, getting my discipline down, everything that rolled over into that then rolled over into what I'm doing now. If you trace it back, everything has mattered from what I've done. You know what I mean?
So the commitment to try something
new, being the dumbest person in the room to figure it out,
and being vulnerable, not scared of, you know,
taking a risk. Yeah.
So a lot of people think about things too much and then don't act on it, and that first step is always going to be commitment. Yeah. So once you commit to something, everything transpires from there. Yep. But until you fully commit to something, you're never going to see change.
You're not going to see a great amount of change.
No.
I mean, you have to commit and then figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, multiple times I have had an idea that I couldn't explain in the end, but I knew it was going to work. And I figured it out as I went with no plan B, and it worked for whatever rhyme or reason, this podcast being a prime example. Yeah. I think you were actually the first person that I told about it, because I think the day that I came up with the idea, or like very short time frame with the idea, you came over to my house. Or maybe it was the office.
It was in your office because you had wrote down on a piece of paper. You're like,
I hadn't even typed it up yet. Yeah. I had, you know, napkin with a, you know, Sharpie, like scribbled everywhere. It's about like me giving Cole, the graphic gangster, my graphic design for like books and stuff that I put together. I'd print stuff out and mark on them and tape them together like I'm a third grader. It's actually pretty, it's actually comical. Yeah. I don't know if he has any of it or not, but it's pretty damn comical, honestly. Yeah. So let's take a commercial break, and then we'll go back to talking on that. This episode is brought to you by Corey G Fitness. Go to CoreyGFitness.com for all your training, nutrition needs, personal development, enhanced lifestyle. CoreyGFitness.com. All right, back from commercial break, and I want to go back into the commitment. So you committed to the I Want Abs contest. You committed to building the brand, building the company. You committed to change overall. But I want to go back to the I Want Abs contest and how pissed was it you for one particular instance. But talk about the level of commitment that you had, and then talk about that one scenario that I'm talking about.
Yeah, so, well, towards the end, too, I think I told you about this. I ended up throwing my back out to where I couldn't even walk for the last 3 weeks. So I was laying on the floor with my feet up on a chair doing abs to still get them in. I was still doing my 100 a day like you told me to, plus the other stuff, while going to the chiropractor and trying to get all that straight. But really throughout the whole process, it was just staying dialed on my meals. I would send you, pictures of my meals every week. You told me the first week, you were like, that's not enough. You're going to need to eat more. But that, and then, the water, the dieting, the cardio, everything that it entails. I was doing cardio every night in my sauna suit. And then for the last, 2 weeks that I couldn't work out, you told me to, start drying out in the sauna, and that I did. That's what I gave him a call, and I'm like, dude, I just passed out in the sauna.
I was pissed. I remember I was at lunch with a buddy of mine for his birthday, I think, and I didn't even see that you called. And then when I called you back, you're like, yeah, man, I just got out of the squad. I passed out. I was in my sauna suit. I was in there for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, I wasn't only in my sauna. So I had sweatpants, socks, sweatshirt, T-ball, long sleeves underneath my sauna suit. And I sat in there for 45 minutes. I started feeling a little dizzy, like my fingers started going numb, my tongue started going numb. So I scooted to the edge. That way, if I passed out, I would just fall out of the sauna. And then finally, I
wasted your one call on me.
Yeah.
I know that.
Well, you were the only person I knew that would know what to do in that situation, because I figured you probably done it before.
I don't know that I've ever passed out. I passed out before, but I don't think in the sauna.
Yeah.
I've had a couple times like blood sugar drop and just weird, not eating for a couple of days on accident, whatever. But, when I called, I wasn't even worried about your well-being. I was like, why the hell are you stupid enough to call me first? That was my first thought is, why would he call me?
I figured you'd done it before. I'm like, this is definitely something Jake's done. Yeah. He'll know the answer to this.
I was pissed. I was at Easton that day too, and I remember I'm like,
you stupid.
He called me. He could have called anybody else in the world, but he called me. I'm an hour and a half away, and I wouldn't even drive to get his dumb ass anyways after doing that.
Yeah, so I wake up. There's like 5 EMS people in my face. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, we're taking you to the hospital. I'm like, no, you're not taking me to the hospital. You'll pump me full of water. And so I denied the squad ride to the hospital. Told them I was just sitting in my truck to get a little AC until I could have somebody pick me up because I wasn't supposed to drive. They pulled out. I drove home.
Yeah, I know.
That was but hey, I cut the weight that I wanted to. I told you I needed 4 more pounds, and I cut it that night in the sauna. So.
And I don't remember what you placed, but I think you're top 25, top 50 out of everyone. And there's a bunch of people that signed up.
There's like 2,100 people.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It was, I think, top 50. I don't think I made top 25.
Yeah, I don't remember. But I do remember, we talked about after, and you're like, man, I wanted to win, going on and on. I'm like, you did win.
Yeah.
You might not have won the contest, but you won at life in this. It's, you won first place for you.
Yeah.
That's what counted. That's the bigger picture of it is the contest is one thing, but what you do after is the bigger picture, And so after that, continue to win. So there's a concept in strategic coach, but it's called the 4 C's. And, when faced with a problem, faced with an opportunity, commitment is the first thing. When you fully commit to something, it has this ripple effect. So you committed to the I Want Abs contest, and then what happened? You started dieting, started dialing in your training. Then you developed courage, right?
Yep.
And then with courage comes the capability. So when you commit to it, you're not confident. You don't have any courage because you don't have any real faith that you can do it, but you're willing to try. And then as you develop courage, you know, as you commit, you develop some courage. And as that courage goes along, then you figure it out, like, I'm capable of doing this because I'm doing it, right? And then comes confidence, right? So talk about confidence in general, but from the I Want Abs contest, day one to the end of 12 weeks, what did it do to your confidence, and what has that impact had on you to this day?
It definitely skyrocketed my confidence. Anytime you try something new like that for the first time, like you said, you know, courage or commitment, courage, what was that? Capability, and then confidence. Anytime you try something new like that, it's always
and stick with it, right?
Stick with it. You show up every day. I mean, I was going 6 days a week, training morning and night. I would do my cardio and abs at night. I would do abs in the morning too. You set a date on the calendar for yourself every day.
Journey to your next destination.
Yep. And then you show up for yourself every single day. And the rippling effect of doing that for 12 weeks, even though it doesn't seem like a long amount of time, if you can do that for 12 weeks, what can't you do?
Mm-hmm. And 12 weeks, I mean, essentially is quite a long time for a instant gratification based society that doing something for 7 days and not going out and drinking on a weekend is an accomplishment to some people.
Yeah. Right? Well, it was an accomplishment for me for sure. I cut all that out. Yeah. That was the first time and you know, even to this day, I still don't drink or anything like I used to. I mean, I've taken that with me from that event, and it's helped my life to this day still.
There's a lot of power in that commitment. And then, you know, once you develop confidence at a scale, because you know that you can do something. And me and Corey talk about this a lot where, you know, for me, you know, my first big achievement was owning Arnold Pipeline. But looking back, like becoming a foreman at 22 or 23 was that real like big opportunity for me where I started to look at the world different. Because I'm 22 or 23. I'm in charge of grown ass men that have been in this industry longer than I have been alive. And that was a frequent thing that was told to me on a daily basis, but it did not, you know, hurt my confidence any. It actually helped it and enhanced it. So when that milestone happened, it's like, what if I can do this at 22? Like these guys have been doing this as long as I've been alive. Yeah. And I've been doing it for really 2 years, so, like truly committing and applying myself. So what else is possible? And that's when at 22 or 23, I came up with I'm going to own Arnold Pipeline by the time I'm 30. There was no rhyme or reason why at 30 years old. It just seemed like the right date on the calendar. I probably didn't even believe it was possible until I was 25 or 26, to be honest with you. But that was my goal. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I was determined to get there.
You had to have that delusional belief in yourself, which all comes back to confidence.
So then whenever you have that belief and then you actually accomplish that thing that was seemingly impossible from everybody, it was told by everyone. The only people that truly understood and believed were me and Cody and our attorney, Jim Haven. Outside of that, no one really thought it was possible. Yeah. Including the previous owner. Like nobody really thought it was possible, and it wasn't really possible. My net worth was $37,000 and by a multi-million-dollar company. The last personal financial statement I did, $37,000 net worth. And this was 2 months before we closed in 2019. And a bank lended us millions of dollars. Doesn't seem possible, right?
Right.
We made it happen. Whatever rhyme or reason why, it doesn't matter. But the confidence that was built because of that, astronomical, absolutely life-changing. But it takes that first win and then that second win. Eventually, the commitment that you have is to a much bigger thing. Yeah. And the confidence built off that first and second and third win allows you the commitment ease after. So it's a lot easier to commit to something after you believe in yourself. You've committed, you've accomplished. So then the confidence is there to commit to the next thing. Yeah. So talk about, you committed to the I Want Abs, you committed to building your own brand. Talk about how that's carried over into your business life and what it did for you after Marzane. So talk about, I don't know if you had left Marzane yet when you committed I Want Abs.
Yeah.
Talk about that time frame and kind of into now.
Yeah, so I just like within that whole, I Want Abs, reconnecting with you, right after that, I took a huge life change with my career. I went from, construction industry to still construction industry, but I was a project manager for the largest home builder in the United States. I was building, 80 homes at a time in a development and closing them in, probably 7 to 9 months. So that was that goes back to the confidence I built myself from the I Want Abs challenge, from, personal development, all that. I was like, I'm not happy with where I'm at, but I have the choice to change it if I want. So I was, given this opportunity to go to a completely different type of workforce that I was used to, and I just jumped. I'm like, yep, sign me up. I'll learn it. I'll figure it out. Within 5 or 6 months, I was promoted to a full superintendent, which was the fastest in that division that anybody has promoted that quick. And then even till the time I left, I was number 1 with closings and reviews. And I was only there for like a year and 2 months, I think, before doing what I'm doing now.
So let's talk about blue collar is your background, right?
Yep.
You're from a blue collar based area of Ohio. The blue collar industry. You've been in it majority of your career.
Yep.
So let's talk about the lack of awareness from a fitness and wellness standpoint in the industry. The stops at the gas station for breakfast, the McDonald's for lunch. Let's drink pop or coffee until it's time to drink alcohol. Bush Light and NASCAR all weekend. Like the general blue collar like construction industry issues are massive.
Yeah.
I've seen it, you've seen it, diabetes, chain smoking. I mean, magnitude of issues.
It's horrible.
And it's crazy. So that's what this podcast is all about. Bringing awareness of, I'm not really big on trying to educate and change people as much as bringing awareness. The intent would definitely be to educate, to change, and to create a different lifestyle for a lot of people.
Yeah.
One that can mask so many problems. So, blue collar workers, majority of the time, come from poverty-stricken areas a lot of time, because that's the only thing they know how to do is work with their hands, right?
Work hard and work with their hands.
Education isn't something that fits in our wheelhouse very well normally. So at a young age, most people have to learn how to work with their hands as a means of survival. And that base is set early. So are the habits. It's generational. I see it every day, to the point, like, it's agonizing for me to not say something about it.
Yeah.
And I've tried to help a lot of people along the way. And as much as you listen and change your life, I've had 10 times more people not listen and not be willing to change. So understanding the basics of just awareness for your wellness in the blue collar industry at a young age would have probably helped you a bunch. And you raced motocross, so you had some general awareness of health.
Oh yeah, I lifted in high school.
Right.
I was always working out until you start getting into the blue collar, industry, where everything involves around your environment, right? That's one of the biggest things you've preached to me since I've, been talking to you is,
show me your friends, I'll show you your future, right?
Yeah, that's the number one quote that I've taken from you, is show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And that just goes back to, when you get out of high school and start going into the trades, start going into the blue collar life, that's your environment now, because you're around those guys for 10, 12 hours a day. What they're doing, you're seeing, you're subconsciously taking it into your mind. You're thinking that that's acceptable, even when it's not, because
it becomes a way of life. Yeah,
it becomes a way of life because you're around them the majority of your life throughout the day. You go home to your family, but you think about it, that's 4 or 5 hours.
All right.
Most blue collar workers are working 12 hours, 14 hours.
I'm a prime example of that. At 18, I go to work full time. I hit the road 6 days a week. I'm out of town. I'm 18 years old. I am, around people that are 25 to 40 is probably the main age group. And most of them were degenerates.
Yeah.
And we would stay up in the parking lot and drink all night. We get in fist fights every other night. Like, the cops have been called. I've been kicked out of hotels. I've paid fines for smoking in hotel rooms. I could go on and on and on about some of the stuff that I had done and been a part of. And then it just kind of didn't seem fun anymore.
But at that time, you thought that was normal.
But it is normal, right? Yeah. So for the industry, it is a normal thing. And I always swore up and down I could not stand the smell of cigarettes. I despised them, all through high school. Even probably my first year working at R&R, I could not stand them. Next thing you know, I'm smoking cigarettes when I'm drinking every once in a while. Next thing you know, I got a pack of smokes in my, my pocket, and if I'm not smoking, I got to chew in. Yeah. Right. And it actually, Mike Daly, I don't know if you remember him from Columbia Gas. Yeah. So Mike and me are still friends to this day. And I was I was getting ready for the show. So I was doing my diet, getting ready to maybe like my second weekend for the show. And I was talking about doing the show, and he's like, you're going to sit here and tell me that you're going to try to be the staple of health. You're going to get up on stage and showcase, your hard work and all that. And you're sitting here smoking a cigarette. And if you're not smoking a cigarette, you got to chew in your mouth. And we were in Athens, working right on campus, right by the football stadium. Yeah. And he sticks his hand out, and I've done this to a lot of people since. He sticks his hand out, and he said, man to man, I bet you can't quit. He's like, I'm challenging you right now. I don't think you can quit. I don't think you're mentally tough enough. He had cancer at one point. So it was very, very, dear to him that, people that he cared about, made a change. So, Mike, I could quit right now if I wanted to. I just don't really want to. He's like, you're not man enough to do it. And he stuck his hand out. I shook his hand, and I have never touched it since. Dang. And that was in probably 2013 or 14. Yeah. So 5 or 6 years of doing that, and all it took was one handshake. Yeah. And it's like that little reminder or that little change that I made because someone else called me out for something. Right. Like, oh, he challenged me that I'm not mentally tough enough to do it. I proved him wrong, right? But actually what I did was change my life and prove him right that I didn't need to do it. Right. He was just figuring out the way to go about it. And ever since then, I've done that. I've done it with a handful of my friends where still this day they chew or whatever, and I'll just challenge them, like, straight up man to man. And then I'll tell them, if I catch you doing this, like some of my buddies, I'll even talk to their mom, like, hey, if he does this, let me know. And then I'll tell them, I'm going to knock your damn teeth out. Like, I promise you're going to get a right hook.
You told me that at Alpha competition last year.
For which part?
Snuffing.
Yeah. Did you quit?
I haven't snuffed.
There you go. Prime example.
Yeah. You were like, if I see you with a dip in, I'm going to knock your teeth out.
That sounds about right. Because I've done that to quite a few people where I just call them out for it. And then, the thought of getting the right hook kind of scares people a little bit too. Especially when they know
from a 6'4" dude like you.
Yeah, especially when they know I'm not joking. Like, no, I'm not kidding. I'm going to literally knock your freaking teeth out. So Iron and Infrastructure, man, it's all about, wellness, fitness, and consciously focusing on the wellness side. You've seen it in the blue collar side where
you almost get made fun of for bettering yourself.
So I was raised in an environment where it was kind of looked down upon about working out. Yeah. Like, oh, you're going to rub all this oil on you and get up on stage and like these whitey-tighty, G-string looking underwear or whatever and like be naked in front of a bunch of people. That's not my intent. When I was lifting weights, it wasn't to do that. It was to be stronger, have more confidence, right? Yeah. At a young age, it was so I wasn't a fat kid anymore, so I wouldn't get made fun of. Right. But then as it develops, whether you want to get on stage, do a powerlifting meet, whatever it is, you build confidence, you feel better, you look better. It evolves into this lifestyle. And I didn't give a shit what people thought. If people had a problem with it, they can come confront me about it, and then we can settle it like fucking men, right? I didn't care about people's opinion. I think that was real key for me growing up as far as separating myself from fitting in. Yeah. Because I never fit in. Right. And I didn't care about opinions, and I think that was a big separator for me. But the construction industry looks down on it. Yeah. Because it's it's an acknowledgement that they don't care about their well-being. And subconsciously, what they're doing is focusing on their illness. It's just not in front of them yet. Yeah. Consciously, when it hits them, like the type 2 diabetics, like the, lung cancer from smoking too much, whatever it is, not being able to bend down and tie your shoes because your gut's in the way. I've seen that just as much. Not being able to get out of the ditch because you're too fat. Yeah. slipping and falling and blowing your ankle out because you're overweight, right? I mean, I've seen so many things that very, very simple changes could change your life. Yeah. But I think the other part is the financial. So I pack my lunch pretty much still to this day, especially with a busy diet. You know, I have a shake ready either at night or in the morning. I'll have a shake ready to go for lunch and I eat when I get home. Yeah. Done. I still carry the same gallon jug that I did probably 5 years ago. It's been ran over with a dozer. It has beat the holy hell. I still carry it every day. Yeah. To the gym throughout the day. It doesn't matter if I'm going to, you know, come here and do a podcast. If I'm going to be in a board meeting, it's there. Either way, I don't care. How many times have you stopped at a gas station $20 or $30 later and got a pack of smokes, a Slim Jim, and a Red Bull? Yeah. That's common, right? It's a daily thing.
That's a normal breakfast for a pipeliner.
Like a bag of donuts, a pack of smokes, you know, a Mountain Dew, that's breakfast. Yeah. Like, let's completely blow our insulin levels out of the water first thing in the morning and then wonder why we're tired at 10 o'clock. Right. So creating some awareness, not only from a physical and wellness state, but a financial state, I think is going to be hopefully impactful for a lot of people. Because I know that $20 or $30 that was spent on breakfast and, you know, at lunch or whatever, I used to live on $60 a week. Doing a show, $60 a week would buy my food for the week. Damn. Doing a show. And I remember dialing in to that point where I was saving a ton of money because I wasn't out at happy hour at Applebee's, you know, drinking all night, doing whatever. Committing to that for me was massive, kind of like I Want Abs contest. How to get the message across though is going to be interesting of truly getting people to understand the carryover. Let's go to one final topic real quick. You got something?
I was going to say, at the end of the day, all that it comes down to is your excuses that you allowed yourself to tell yourself. If you're overweight, you know it. There's no hiding it. There isn't. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's just you're allowing yourself to tell yourself too many damn excuses to change your life.
There's no magic pill. I've had to be brutally honest with a few people that would come to me for advice. I'd give them the advice. They wouldn't apply it themselves. Well, I just don't know that's going to work for me. And then finally I get to the point, hey, what do you think about this diet? Hey, what do you think about this weight loss pill? And I'll say, here's the best pill you can take. This reality pill that I'm getting ready to give you. You're fat. You are fat. You're overweight. You need to put the spoon down, get on a treadmill, and move. Yeah. Wake up half hour, 45 minutes earlier. But the reality of your situation is not the pill you're taking. It's the exercise and the time and the commitment that you're not putting in.
100%.
You're fat.
You're fat.
If you want to be fat and stay fat, that's fine. Yeah. That's totally okay. But don't come to me for advice and then not even apply yourself a little bit. Yep. Because now the reality is you want to lose 40 or 50 pounds because you're 40 or 50 pounds overweight. Guess what? You got to quit eating so much and you got to move. Yep.
You got to work on yourself.
It's simple. Yeah. It might not be easy for everybody, but it's simple. Yeah. So let's talk about success in business and success in the weight room and the carryover. So you weren't really training that much when we reconnected, were you? Maybe a little bit, but not.
I was just doing like my own thing. I was training 5 days a week, but I wasn't like powerlifting.
Gotcha.
I had no idea anything about powerlifting actually.
And I remember when we first started talking again. Yeah. It was novice at best. Like, yeah, I'm going to do 5 sets of bicep curls, 5 sets of 12, like very, very novice. And then
arms 3 days a week.
Yeah, yeah. Small arms, Danny, you would appreciate that. Yeah. But I think I got you onto Corey's app. Got you to start, squatting 5 days a week. Yep. Doing a Get Stacked plan. There's every day has a base of what you're doing, but the carryover on day to day from the extracurricular work, it builds such a solid foundation. Let's go into the powerlifting world real quick, because one thing that I do remember now, you had committed to the I Want Abs contest. You committed to building your own gear brand. Yeah. You launched all that, or we're in the process of launching it. And then you did something that most people don't have the courage to do. You actually called me out on doing a powerlifting meet. Yeah. And I'm really glad you did, because I was coming off a pec injury. I was supposed to compete with the 4 a.m. crew in, I think, April of that year. Yep. And I tore the pec like 4 weeks before. And I was pissed because I really wanted to be a part of that. And, the old saying, everything happens for a reason, could not have been more true in this moment. So it was at Alpha Evolution.
Yep.
You were the trophy sponsor, I think, for me.
Coincidentally enough, I had no idea. Yeah. But yeah, I sponsored this powerlifting meet, and he ended up winning the trophy for it.
Yeah. And then what the impact that it had that I didn't realize was how personally gratifying it would be for me to go to the place that my brother Mason was at before he passed away. And that was his home of training.
Yep.
There's still messages at the place for him. I had a pair of his shoes, that I wore, and I haven't worn them since. I got them hanging up. I dedicated the gym at my house to him,
yep.
which you came and joined us, after that meet.
You wore his shirt.
I had a shirt of his, yeah. And, there wasn't a bunch of competition at the meet. I won my class, but it wasn't, I didn't put up great numbers. I benched and squatted the same amount because I almost bombed out on my squats. So that doesn't happen very often. I had to make sure to acknowledge that in the 4 a.m. crew chat first thing after I got done, because I missed my second and third squat, and then I hadn't benched more than 350, I think, going into it, and then I benched 410 on my last rep.
Yeah.
So a good friend of mine, Tony Ramos from Westside, came in, hand off for me, in the bench. He was there for me the whole time. I think Corey came. It was on his birthday. He actually wrapped my knees. I think that was the most disappointing thing about all of it, was Corey came on his birthday. He had family in town. He shouldn't even have been there. And he went out of his way to come wrap my knees, and I missed a damn squat. I was pissed.
I still got that picture of him wrapping your knees for you.
Man, I was really disappointed in myself. But my first meet, I had no idea what I was doing, right? Everyone in the first meet doesn't. But at the end of the day, being able to have that trophy, with your company on it, and then having Mason's shoes and shirt, and being able just to put that up on the shelf.
Yeah.
That is a lifetime memory that I will never forget.
That's awesome.
I haven't wore them shoes since. I had his name and his initials and his number on the shoes. And I have a picture of my daughter, and she's pointing, up when I'm getting ready to squat. She's with my wife and she's pointing, and that will forever be a monumental moment for me, regardless of how much weight I pushed. It was about the atmosphere and being there. My first meet could not have went better at the end of the day. So
it was mine too. So
yeah, and then the challenge, you challenged me. You wouldn't have done that a year before that.
No,
you wouldn't have the balls to do it.
No,
but then you're like, hey man, why don't you just jump in this meet? Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
So kind of back to show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Building that team of people that are willing to step up and challenge you when the time's right. The timing was right for me.
Yeah.
Going into it, I was a complete train wreck. I was probably 50% walking into the meet, but it was meant to be that day.
Yeah.
Absolutely meant to be. Just short story, just had to get that out there. But
yeah,
let's go back to the confidence that fitness will give you when you're applying yourself into your business world. So talk about it from similar trends where you have an injury, you have an issue in your business. What do? You seek out your network. You go into different arenas. You collaborate with people, to overcome issues. Do you have any personal experiences where the two kind of tie together?
With business or?
Both. So
both of them tying together?
I can think of one for you, but.
What's that?
So on the commitment level, I remember you calling me when you were still doing the house thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I got this opportunity. I don't know if I can take it or not. What should I do? And I said, what's the floor look like? What's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
You got to go back. You got to go get another job. And then after that, I don't even think I said anything else. So you're right.
Yeah.
And then you committed to it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's all I needed to hear was everything is going to be a risk. How big's the risk? Mm-hmm. And the bigger risk you take, the bigger outcome you get. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And then if you look at it from a worst case scenario, like for me, trying to buy our pipeline, I'm going to lose everything if I don't make it happen. There's no doubt, 100% lose everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So what? I lose my house. I file bankruptcy. I either still have a job or I can go get another job because I got a good resume and they don't care about me filing bankruptcy.
Right.
Okay. That's it.
You take everything you learned and you try it again.
That's it. That's the worst.
Yeah.
For what it is now, I'll take that risk all day.
All day.
So being able, having the confidence to take that risk, and now seems like you're doing better than you have for a long time.
100%. But do you even know how that started? like how I came to where I am today?
I don't know.
So I was going to do the I Want Abs challenge again this year. And remember I had appendicitis, and they found a hernia in there that they had to patch up too. And I was in the hospital, and I sent you a pic because I was upset. I'm like, man, dude, everything's over this year. You know what I mean? I was planning on doing powerlifting meets.
Quit being soft.
You said quit being a little pussy, and then you sent me Mike's podcast with Ryan Nidell.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then I started like looking into his podcast. I was like, man, that's a team I want to be around.
Because I think I had listened to that, and then I was going on Mike's podcast not long after, and then
2 weeks later, and then they posted the hiring event, and that's when I called you like, hey man, should I do this? And you're like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? You go home and start again.
That's it. So you committed to it, right?
Yeah, I committed to it. That was such an alignment thing, from just you sending me the podcast in there, listening to it. Then they had the hiring event. I committed to it, and so I'm 7 months into it now. It's door-to-door sales for you that don't know. I'm a roofing contractor. It's been 7 months, and I've sold 1.1 million. It was something that, you know, doesn't seem possible when you start out. And you just got to have that delusional belief and confidence in yourself, and do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. 2 years ago, the person that I knew would not know the person that is here now.
Not even close.
Yeah. So I have this thing I've heard kind of in a roundabout way, but, you know, whenever you die, right, I call it your twin, but, you know, whenever you die, the definition of hell, right?
Yeah.
The person that you could have became isn't the person that you did become, right? So you face yourself when you die, and then you don't recognize who you are on the other side. So the person that maximize their potential, you know, is the person that you were destined to become.
Yeah.
But then for whatever rhyme or reason, you took the easy way out, you didn't do that, you know, you end up not being that person. And then when you face yourself, when you die, are you looking at the person that you should have became? And if you do, it should be your twin. Yeah. Which resonate probably with you more since you do have a twin. But, you know, thinking about maximizing your potential in life and doing all that, I want to meet my twin when I die. I don't want to show up and not recognize who that other person is, right?
Right.
And sometimes, though, it just takes a spark or someone just to kind of, like Corey, saying, what the hell are you doing with your life? As a 19-year-old lost in my own way. That was the initial spark for me to me sitting here on my own podcast now. Yeah. So having that initial spark, everybody has one. Everyone had something that, whether it was, you know, a bad childhood, poverty growing up, whatever their time was, something sparks interest to be different, and then it transpires into whatever you're destined to be. And I do believe everything happens for a reason. Everybody has a season in your life. So, you know, we were in each other's lives for a few years and didn't, you know, have any communication for a couple of years, then reconnect, and then here we are now. Yeah. So it's amazing how that all, you know,
full circle.
Yeah,
it's pretty wild,
circle.
Honestly.
Yeah. So I think we'll wrap it up with that. So first thing for the listeners for advice, commit, take action, and do it. And your life will be different because of it.
Choose your hard.
There you go. Choose your hard. This episode is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. For all your supplement needs, go to maxeffortmuscle.com.